On July 16th, in the middle of the fifth summer of a full-scale war, Volodymyr Zelensky fired one of his closest allies. Within hours, more than 1,000 people were standing in the center of Kyiv, chanting "shame" and waving Ukrainian and EU flags. 5 days later, Zelensky fired someone else too, the man in charge of the entire Ukrainian army. In wartime, during active combat operations. This is the story of the biggest leadership shakeup Ukraine has seen since the invasion began, why it nearly broke the government, and what it says about how Ukraine plans to fight the rest of this war. Let's start with who Mikhailo Fedorov actually was, because that's the key to understanding why his firing caused such an uproar. Fedorov was 35 years old, and until July 16th, he was Ukraine's Minister of Defense. Before that, he ran the Ministry of Digital Transformation, and he was widely credited as the architect behind Ukraine's drone revolution, the entire ecosystem of cheap FPV drones, long-range strike drones, and battlefield tech that has let Ukraine punch massively above its weight against a much larger enemy. If you've watched any of our videos about Ukrainian drones hitting oil refineries 2,000 kilometers inside Russia, Fedorov is one of the people behind why that's even possible. He was young, he was popular, and soldiers on the front line trusted him. On July 16th, Zelensky removed him as part of a broader government reshuffle. Zelensky's official explanation was almost painfully honest. He told reporters, "I wanted unity very much. The sides did not find it." He said he didn't absolve himself of responsibility, that he understood the strengths and weaknesses of everyone involved, but that unity simply hadn't happened. In Fedorov's place, Zelensky appointed Yevhen Kamara, the head of Ukraine's security service, who had himself been closely involved in the long-range strike campaigns hitting Russian oil infrastructure. That explanation did not satisfy the public. By Thursday morning, protests had broken out in multiple Ukrainian cities. In Kyiv's central square alone, more than 1,000 demonstrators gathered, waving flags and demanding Fedorov's reinstatement. This is worth pausing on, because wartime protests in Ukraine are rare. Ukrainians have largely rallied around their government since 2022 out of sheer necessity. For over 1,000 people to take to the streets in the middle of an active war says something about how deeply Fedorov's removal cut. So what was actually going on behind the scenes? According to reporting from multiple outlets, the real conflict was between Fedorov and General Alexander Syrskyi, Ukraine's commander-in-chief since February 2024. Syrskyi, who earned the nickname the Butcher for his willingness to accept heavy casualties in defense of territory, represented a more traditional, Soviet-influenced style of command, built around infantry and artillery, holding ground at almost any cost. Fedorov represented the opposite instinct: fewer soldiers exposed, more machines doing the dying, a war fought increasingly through drones, electronic warfare, and precision strikes deep into Russian territory. These two men were, in effect, running two different theories of how Ukraine should survive this war, and Zelensky had let that tension sit unresolved for a long time. Firing Fedorov didn't end the argument, it just moved it into the streets. For days, the protests kept building instead of fading, and on the evening of July 21st, Zelensky made his second major move. He removed Syrskyi from command entirely. In his place, he appointed 43-year-old Major General Mikhailo Drapatyi, previously commander of Ukraine's joint forces. It's hard to overstate how unusual this is. Firing your top general in the middle of a war, 5 days after firing your defense minister over disagreements with that same general, is not something functioning militaries do lightly. It's a signal that the pressure from the streets had become impossible to ignore, and that Zelensky had, in effect, sided with the reformers. So who is Mikhailo Drapatyi, the man now running Ukraine's entire war effort? His story goes back to 2014. During the fighting in Mariupol that year, Drapatyi commanded a BMP-2 armored vehicle that broke through a Russian-backed militant barricade to rescue a group of besieged Ukrainian police officers, reportedly shouting a single word at his driver, to launch the assault, go. That same year, he led an encircled Ukrainian force that fought its way out through hostile territory to safety. When Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022, Drapatyi was the officer Ukraine kept sending to the places that were about to collapse. As deputy commander of Operational Group South, he stopped a Russian push toward Kyiv, a city whose fall could have been a strategic catastrophe. In the summer of 2024, he stabilized the front near Kharkiv during a surprise Russian incursion and became, at the time, the youngest general to hold that kind of command. But Drapatyi's career hasn't been a straight line upward. In June 2025, a Russian missile struck a Ukrainian army training ground, killing at least 12 soldiers and wounding dozens more. Drapatyi, who was serving as commander of Ukraine's ground forces at the time, resigned on the spot, saying an army where commanders don't take personal responsibility isn't the kind of army worth having. Zelensky refused to let him go, kept him in service, and gave him a new command instead. That decision looks, in hindsight, like it was setting up exactly this moment. Before we go further, if you're finding this kind of behind-the-scenes military and political analysis useful, this is a good moment to hit subscribe to the Military Show. We break down stories like this one multiple times a week, connecting the political decisions in Kyiv to what's actually happening on the battlefield. What makes Drapatyi's appointment so pointed is that he wasn't a neutral choice. Just 1 week before taking the top job, Drapatyi had publicly written on Facebook in support of the ousted Fedorov, arguing that Ukraine's armed forces needed to be capable of learning, developing technology, protecting people, and allowing commanders to take responsibility for the outcome. That's not the language of a Syrskyi loyalist. That's someone endorsing exactly the philosophy Fedorov was fired for pushing too hard. Drapatyi was also the officer who personally drove one of Ukraine's most important recent innovations, the so-called drone line, a defensive belt of drone units along contested sectors of the front, designed to detect and destroy Russian assault groups before they ever reach Ukrainian trenches. In other words, Zelensky didn't just remove Syrskyi, he replaced him with someone who thinks like Fedorov. So why does any of this actually matter to how the war unfolds from here? Because this isn't really a story about two men losing their jobs. It's a story about which vision of the war wins out inside the Ukrainian state. For the past year, Ukraine has scored some of its most effective results not on the front line, holding trenches the old-fashioned way, but through long-range strikes, hitting refineries, ammunition depots, and military-industrial targets deep inside Russia, and grinding down Russian logistics through relentless drone pressure. Ukraine's general staff reported that Russia has lost over 1.4 million troops since the start of the full-scale invasion, and a large share of that attritional pressure has come from exactly the kind of drone-centric, technology-first approach that Fedorov championed and Drapatyi now embodies at the top of the military. Putting a reform-minded, tech-oriented general in charge, backed by a defense minister with a security service background steeped in the strike campaigns against Russian oil infrastructure, is a fairly clear signal. Kyiv intends to keep leaning into asymmetric, technology-driven warfare rather than trench-holding attrition, even if that means shaking the government to its foundations to make it happen. There are real risks here, too, and it's worth being honest about them. Changing your commander-in-chief in the middle of active combat operations creates disruption. New command relationships have to be built from scratch. Subordinate generals need time to learn how a new chief thinks and makes decisions, and Russia will be watching for any sign of confusion in that transition to exploit. Drapatyi himself is untested at this exact level of responsibility. Commanding a full theater of war is a different job from commanding ground forces or a single operational group, however impressive his record has been so far. And the protests that forced this outcome, however justified they may have been, are also a reminder that Zelensky's political position is more fragile than it's looked at any point since 2022. What happens next will say a lot. Watch for whether Drapatyi starts reshuffling the generals beneath him, to bring in more officers aligned with the drone and technology approach. Watch for whether the pace and scale of Ukraine's long-range strikes on Russian territory picks up in the coming weeks, which would suggest the new leadership is doubling down on that strategy. And watch for whether the protests that started this whole chain of events actually die down now that both of their demands, in a roundabout way, appear to have been met. For now, what's clear is this. Ukraine just went through the most significant reshuffling of its wartime leadership since Zelensky took Syrskyi's predecessor out of command years ago. And it happened not because of a battlefield disaster, but because a defense minister and a commander-in-chief couldn't agree on how to win the war. And the Ukrainian public sided decisively with the one pushing for change. If you want to understand the drone campaign that's driving all of this, go watch our video on Ukraine's deep strike attacks on Russian oil refineries. It'll make a lot more sense of why this leadership fight mattered so much. And if you want to keep up with how this story develops, subscribe. We'll be tracking exactly what Drapatyi does with the power he's just been handed.